So today I thought I would do a little bit of, I guess it's a book haul video, but I didn't buy the books. I actually just picked up my holds from the library, and oh god, this is how many I got. Yeah, when all your holds become available at the same time, it's hard to get things read in time, but shout out to the Multnomah County Library for getting rid of late fees. So at least if I can't quite read all of these books in the 21 days that I have them out, I won't be charged late fees for them, as I still try to get them in time so that other people can read them. So yeah, I'm just gonna go through some of these books that I will be reading and talk a little bit briefly about them. So first off, I actually have read a couple of these already, is The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. So N.K. Jemisin wrote like probably my favorite fantasy trilogy of the last decade, Broken Earth, which I'll probably talk a little bit more on an upcoming video. But so that made it so that like instantly anything that she writes I'm gonna read. This is speculative fiction with some YA vibes. It's got a super creative plot, including the birth of New York City as like a character, or multiple characters actually, and it is also the first in a trilogy as well. So I was really excited to read this. I probably had like a little bit too high of expectations, which might be part of the reason that it ended up being a 3-star read for me. There are a lot of super great elements here, great diversity, great atmosphere, but it ended up being kind of a mess. For me, I wasn't a huge fan. Probably partially because I like really deep character development, and when you have characters that are representative of like boroughs like that of thousands of people in New York, that's really hard to do. Still, N.K. Jemisin, love her. So that was my first of these books. Death in Her Hands by Tessa Moshfegh is Moshfegh playing with the traditional mystery novel formula, and as usual, having an incredibly unreliable narrator to do that. So I thought this was a really interesting book. I think one reviewer on Goodreads said it best, that like this book is easier to admire than love. I can see how she's playing with genre. There's like a lot of meta things going on here that are really cool, but it's not the most satisfying like mystery, and definitely don't expect like, oh, we're gonna find out what's going on here. Don't expect that. And if you have experience with Moshfegh's other books, you might like this book too. It was really weirdly similar to a book that I know a lot of people read and loved last year called Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead. This one was written first, I think, so it's not like there's any like copying of any elements going on, but like it's kind of eerie. There's like Blake poems, there's an older woman like who's a little bit of an unreliable narrator. There's just so many weird similarities that it's kind of creepy. So if you'd like Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead, maybe you will also like this book. The only other one by Moshfegh I've read so far is My Year of Rest and Relaxation, which I think I liked better than this one. But it was also, you know, a little bit more of a novelty at that point. This is the one that I'm reading right now, The Great Offshore Grounds by Vanessa Veselka. But I haven't gotten super far into it yet. Let's see, I'm like 40 pages in. So I haven't learned a lot yet, but I do know that this is a sort of a twist on the traditional road trip novel. It's got a super unique portrayal of a family, like not the same family that you usually see necessarily in traditional fiction. But I think the reason I was most excited about reading this book is that I've heard great things about its portrayal of poverty in the United States, which is, I think, an important thing for us to be grappling with in fiction. So I am looking forward to getting further in. It's pretty long, and it's a beautiful, beautiful cover. Let's see, it's like 430 pages long. It also looks like Veselka lives in Portland, Oregon, so that could have been another reason that I was recommended this book, as somebody who lives in Portland. I've got 4 more books to go through. Good Boy, My Life in 7 Dogs by Jennifer Finney Boylan is the next book. I kind of have these in order of when I'm going to read them, mostly based on I can see on the library website how many people are waiting to read it. So I'm like, okay, like everyone wants to read N.K. Jemisin, so I will read this one first and get it back to the library. So I'm going to take a couple of these back tomorrow. So the next one I'm going to read is Good Boy. I adopted a dog about a year ago, just a little bit over a year ago. I adopted my dog Moon, who I love, and that definitely was the draw to like read a book about dogs. Also, I'm getting more into memoirs, and this is a memoir about the transformative power of loving dogs, which I think I can totally understand. So I'm excited to read this book, and I hope it's not too sad. I'm not one of those people that like can't read books where dogs die or can't watch, Marley and Me, but I do love animals, so we'll see how it goes. As We Have Always Done is one of the like more straight up nonfiction books that I'm reading. The subtitle is Indigenous Freedom Through Radical Resistance, and I think this book is really talking about ongoing resistance to exploitation, like capitalism and colonialism, environmental degradation, like how we can resist and through an Indigenous lens, like Indigenous theory on that resistance, and also how Indigenous people have resisted those forces throughout time. So, probably hard reading in terms of like what's actually being resisted, that we are all becoming more and more familiar with every day if we educate ourselves. But I'm really excited to dig into that more Indigenous theory and like learn from that struggle. That one is lower on the list only because fewer people are trying to read it. I think it's probably the most important thing I'm reading. Next, Boys of Alabama by Genevieve Hudson. So this is a debut novel about queer teen love in the South. And Genevieve Hudson actually is a friend of a friend. I met them through a college friend who actually was my roommate when she was getting an MFA. So I think they both were in the MFA program at this point. So I'll always read a book by somebody that I've met, and especially like always looking for a little bit like of alternative books that are written in the South. I think this gets into the Southern Gothic, which is I'm a big fan of Southern Gothic. I grew up in the South. So I'm really excited to read it for that reason. Also, I think there's a blurb from Lenny Zumas on this book somewhere, who actually teaches at the PSU MFA program here in Portland, and wrote Red Clocks, which was like one of my favorite books of the last 5 years. So she recommended it. I'm probably going to read it. And I don't know much about this yet, other than that it's Southern Gothic, but I think there's some paranormal stuff going on in here, so that makes me also excited to read it. And then the last book is I Hold a Wolf by the Ears by Laura Vandenberg. It's got a cool cover that, sorry, my window is making it hard to see. So this is a book of short stories that I think tend a little bit towards the spooky. And I like to have a book like of short stories to kind of read in between when I like can't commit to reading a longer narrative, and I only have a few minutes at a time. It's cool to read short stories. And Vandenberg, I have been like, she caught my eye since I read, I think maybe her first novel, Third Hotel, which is a surreal and short novel which essentially has the narrator following her dead husband around Havana festival. So that book, I think I was on some list of like stuff to read that I got in my inbox, and I saw that description of the narrative and was like, I'm in. So it wasn't perfect, but I found it really interesting and I liked her prose. And so after that, she's on my to watch list for new books. So yeah, I'm excited to read this and have a book of short stories in what is otherwise a stack of like pretty big books and a lot of novels and dense stuff. So yeah, that is what I'm gonna hope to be reading over the next, let's say, 2 months, in addition to, of course, the mammoths that I am reading this month, which I will get y'all an update on soon. I think I'm probably just gonna end up having one video to talk about those when I finish them. But I do think I'm gonna finish both of them in March. We'll see. So yeah, I would love to see your hauls, especially if you check stuff out from the library. Like, I feel like so many other readers in my life are like, oh, I'm running out of room on my bookshelf again. It's like, the library, check it out. I mean, I'm definitely spoiled because Multnomah County has a great library system. I also, during quarantine, finally broke down and got a Kindle, so these are actually not all of the library books I, have on hold. I also have been doing stuff via Kindle because it's a little bit easier during quarantine when libraries aren't physically open. So I am curious to hear how much you're using your library subscription, and like if you have any good hacks for that, for folks who are just now starting to kind of dive into the library a little bit more. Yeah, go libraries. Thank you for watching. Love if you hit the subscribe button below, and have a great rest of your day.